Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our NXT review. And I gotta say, this was a fun episode of NXT. I believe there's just this episode and then one more episode next week before TakeOver Dallas. And this episode tonight, you know what? I had fun with it. It had some good matches on it. It advanced certain storylines. Had a phenomenal main event. So really, I have nothing to complain about. I thought this was an enjoyable hour. And yeah, I mean, what did you think of it, Ashton?
Yeah, this was a good show. Pretty much par for the course for NXT as far as quality goes. They consistently put on entertaining, logical shows with great matches, and it's nowhere in the same league as Lucha Underground from a storytelling standpoint, but it's leaps and bounds better than most other wrestling promotions from just about every other standpoint.
Absolutely. You know, NXT keeps holding its own, and I've got to give it credit for this, you know, as it relates to WrestleMania 32. I mean, TakeOver Dallas, to me, has legitimate hype behind it, and for good reason. I think the card is stacked, and the way they told certain stories, in particular, I want to give praise to the NXT Tag Team Championship match tonight, because NXT did a video package, which we'll get into a little bit later, for American Alpha that I absolutely adored. I thought it was amazingly done, and can't wait to talk about that. But yeah, I mean, you know, NXT TakeOver Dallas has legitimate momentum, where, if I'm being completely honest, you know, for a few factors, I'm just looking to get through WrestleMania. I mean, notice my wording there. There's not really anticipating, there's not really anything. I just want to get through it, you know, because I don't really feel any excitement. Whereas TakeOver Dallas, yeah, I'm going to be jazzed when that day comes, and I know, oh my God, wait a minute, it's TakeOver today. So I got to give NXT credit for that. So with that said, let's get right into our first segment, Heat of the Night. I've got no heats of the night tonight. I liked what this show did. Just, again, a very harmless and fun hour of NXT. What about you, Ashton?
Yeah, same here. This is a solid show. I don't really have anything super negative to say about it. You know, even if I really kind of rack my brain, there wasn't anything bad on this show. It wasn't. That's the thing. Like, this show was really good across the board. There's nothing bad to say about it. Let's just get going, man.
Yeah, all right. With that said, let us get right into our NXT review. And if I'm not mistaken, Ashton, we actually opened up with Johnny Gargano taking on the Drifter Elias Samson.
Yeah, and I like this. I like that they kind of realized maybe the Drifter isn't getting over quite as much as they wanted. So they're gonna, you know, have him lose a match, see, you know, kind of use that to test the water, see if he can, as a character, withstand a loss. Give a nice rub to Johnny Gargano. I thought that was great. And then you kind of have the beatdown at the end to get Samson's heat back. I thought this was a really, really well written segment.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by this, because I'm going to be completely forthright with all of you, and this is nothing against Johnny Gargano. I thought he was going to get pumped out here. You know, I thought Elias Samson, yeah, it was going to be a competitive matchup. No doubt Johnny Gargano wasn't going to lay down and die, but I really thought Elias Samson was really going to dominate and just take the win.
Yeah.
I was quite pleasantly surprised when Johnny Gargano, even if it was by a roll-up, got the win here, because we already know Tommaso Ciampa's stock's rising. In fact, so much so, if you look at our TwitWoW last week, Ashton and I both projected, we don't know how far into the future, but that Tommaso Ciampa could very well be a future NXT championship contender with the vice grip that Finn Balor seems to have on the title at present. So that's where we see Ciampa. Gargano's a bit more of a mystery, because to me, I really like Ciampa's look, and I think he's got a charisma that's underrated based on what you showed me on YouTube when he was still really deep into the Sicilian psychopath.
Yeah.
Johnny Gargano, I mean, what do you think of this guy, from a charisma standpoint? How far do you think Johnny Gargano can go?
I think that they're giving Gargano the slow build, like the Daniel Bryan style. Let's just have this guy put on great matches every week. He's scrappy. He's a little on the small side, but he fights with all of his heart. I think they're doing a really good job of giving him that sort of underdog, generic, babyface, scrappy build. I love that.
I agree, and I think it's the wise build. Johnny Gargano strikes me as the type of guy that on like a random episode of NXT, if they had like a battle royal for number one contendership for a world title shot, like Johnny Gargano would win that. And that's how we'd get him in that picture. Whereas Ciampa, I feel like it's more dominant, more deliberate. You know what I mean? Like the groundwork is laid for a title shot like that. That's just the difference I see between the two guys. But I do see both doing really well. And I got to give credit to Elias Samson here. I thought the beatdown was well executed. I loved when he really got in Gargano's face when he's just kind of holding him. You want to embarrass me? I'm what these people need. And he shoves him. The one thing I have to say, because I think it would be hypocritical if we didn't mention it every now and again, I do wish that Corey Graves would get on board. You know, I get that you don't like Elias Samson.
Yeah, but Graves was weirdly neutral tonight. Like, there wasn't really anything overly heelish about him other than just that he antagonized Tom Phillips.
Yeah, and I don't really like that. I like when Corey, is antagonistic, just generally speaking. You know, he picks his sides. He does whatever. I think it would have been great if he would have said something like, oh, this is a great beatdown by Elias Samson. This sends a message. And then maybe Tom could have been like, oh, I thought you hated Elias Samson. And then Corey could have been like, well, listen, Tom, we can agree to disagree as far as I'm concerned. I think I'm pretty excellent. But there's no doubt this is exactly what you need to do if you want to get anywhere in NXT. Something like that. So you can address, yeah, I have my misgivings with the guy because he doesn't seem to like me as a person, and I'm fucking fantastic because I'm Corey Graves. But no doubt what he's doing, that's how you get places in NXT. But the idea that he's like, oh, come on, the match is over. When you lose, it's embarrassing. That's why you try and win. It's like you're acting like the guy doesn't even know what being a wrestler is. So honestly, even though I don't have a heat of the night, I would say Corey Graves' commentary on this particular segment was a nitpick for me. Because it wasn't so much so where it, like, pissed me off and I wanted to rage and, like, break my computer screen by any means. But, I mean, come on, Corey. You're so much better than this. And I think that's why I'm only saying it's a nitpick. I don't expect anything from JBL. But I expect something from Corey Graves because he is so talented. And, yeah, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. What didn't rub me the wrong way was the end result of this beatdown. It seemed like Elias Samson was going to do that neckbreaker on the steel rampway, that great. But then Apollo Crews comes out. He shoves Elias Samson. He gets in his face. So, honestly, early on, Ashton, I was saying, oh, could Elias Samson, feud with Sami Zayn? Is that a program we'd be getting? We know that Sami's kind of graduated. At this point, he's going to do Dallas and then, probably main roster full-time, I'd guess. Apollo Crews is not a bad substitute by any means.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this program, believe it or not. I don't know if it's going to make the cutoff for Dallas, or if they're just going to feud, like, kind of after that, maybe new set of tapings, we get this thing underway, give it some legs. But regardless, I think it's a good move. I think Apollo Crews is a nice foil for Elias Samson. And, yeah, this could really be the start of Elias Samson's ascent, because I still stand by when you and I gave him that glowing appraisal on that one episode of NXT TWitWoW. I still think we've got a phenomenal heel here.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. That's my thing, too, is I feel like Samson isn't really getting over in that the crowd isn't liking what he's doing, but in that same sense, he's getting heat, which is it's what he's supposed to be getting because he's a heel.
Exactly.
It's weird because, like, in this day and age, getting over with the crowd almost is like a precedent to actually getting the kind of reaction you want. Like, you want the crowd to like you, and then you can take them from there, whether you want them to boo or cheer. But that's not how it's always been, and that's not necessarily how it should be, because the crowd doesn't need to like you if you're a heel, and your whole point is to get booed. The crowd is supposed to want to see you get beat up.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I think Samson's doing a great job.
I agree, man. Wholeheartedly agree. I do think he's going to be that heel. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of overestimating or even kind of miscategorizing the kind of heel that Elias Samson will be. But I do think he's in a similar vein to The Miz when we talked about him like a week or two ago. I think it was like on a Raw TWitWoW or something, where I don't think he's going to care about being cool. I think he's just going to do his own thing and try and get that heat. And, that I think is going to take him pretty far. So I'm excited. So yeah, we know that Apollo Crews and Elias Samson are on a collision course, but let's not lose sight of the fact Johnny Gargano did get the win here. So his stock's going up. Has to make you wonder, Ashton, too. That was something else that crossed my mind. Gargano is clearly staying babyface. Tommaso Ciampa's gone heel. Maybe that'll be kind of the warm-up feud for Ciampa before he gets in the title picture, is feuding with his former partner Gargano. I think those two could have a few good series of matches. Maybe Gargano can have a segment with Ciampa. He kind of bumps shoulders with him. He's like, hey, man, what happened to you? I've been seeing you lately. Like, what are you doing out there? What am I doing out there? I'm winning. What are you doing, Johnny? Getting beat up by the people that you beat, looking like a joke. And then, you can kind of go into that. So that's an idea on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we want to move on?
Absolutely.
All right, up next, we had our second match of the night, John. We had Finn Balor, John, taking on a certain someone, John.
My boy, Rich Swann. So happy for this man. And can we just say, Ashton, right out of the gate, Swann is over. I love the crowd reaction to him tonight. So affirming where he is in NXT. And here's the thing, why I'm making such a big stink out of it. He was standing across the ring from Finn Balor, who is so beloved and rightfully so by Full Sail, has been the NXT champion for I think a little over 8 months at this point. So for me to hear predominantly Swann chants, especially in the early part of the matchup, I think it started to go more to Finn when he really upped the aggression. Yeah. But Swann really had that base. He really had that support.
And I think it helped too that Finn kind of worked the bully role in this match. I hate to kind of say, oh, Finn worked heel in this match, because he wasn't really going full blown heel, because he was still doing the shit that has him over as a babyface. He was just being more aggressive, and he was, it's kind of like when Tanahashi faces Okada, he always kind of turns on that bully factor where he just kind of beats on him and targets a body part and kind of goes in that direction. And he didn't necessarily target a body part, but he kind of worked that borderline heelish, really aggressive style in this match. And I think that helped with Swann's, babyface appeal too.
I would certainly agree. And I agree with your assessment of the situation on the whole. I think with Finn, because, Swann did get some impressive offense here. He got that Hurricane Rana counter, which I liked. That was really cool looking. And he got the kick to Finn's head. And I think Finn just kind of woke up after that. He's like, I am facing Samoa Joe in 2 weeks. If I can't beat Swann, if I can't dominate Swann, what hope do I have of even surviving Samoa Joe, let alone beating him? Exactly. And he turned up the heat. And you know what? In the end, he gets the win after the coup de grace blended in with the Bloody Sunday, which I gotta say, I didn't know how I felt about that combo when Finn first debuted it, but it's really grown on me because, Finn is the NXT champion. I think whoever beats him, the reign's gotten to the point where it really will be like a big fucking deal. And so for him to be so dominant in his matches where he punctuates it that way, I just think is great. I love it, man. And for Swann to hang in there with the NXT champion, I didn't expect him to get a win. But the idea that in his second match, he's already in a match like that, I just think is just so cool. I'm hoping Swann does well. I would hate to see this go like the Solomon Crow route because, I know Swann a bit personally. And I know how hard he's worked to get to this point. And I even saw on his Facebook, he tweeted out that we haven't even gotten started yet. And I hope he's right because Swann has a major upside, and I'm just glad NXT seems to see that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on. Up next, we had an Alex Reyes interview with Emma and Dana Brooke. And Dana admits that she's been injured and unable to compete since NXT TakeOver Respect. She wishes that she could be the one fighting Asuka tonight, but it's going to be Emma that does the job, which I laughed at that because she's literally doing the job tonight. And then Emma just kind of, she's confident. She knows that she can beat Asuka. She needs to prove it to everyone else, but she knows that she can do it.
Yeah, I like this. Very serious promo. They got the job done that they needed to. They said they're focused, this and that. And then Dana seemed like she was going to spare Alex Reyes of the head pat because she said, no, tonight's too important. Psych. And then she does it. So, it is what it is, but I liked how determined Emma was, even saying it should be me in that championship match against Bayley at Dallas, not Asuka, and more or less as she was going to prove it. So good stuff here.
Yeah, definitely. And then we get a really, really well done Shinsuke Nakamura video package. Just do a great job of really building him up as the legitimate deal that he is.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it just builds the anticipation. You know, we know Nakamura is going to face Sami Zayn at TakeOver Dallas. I think for a lot of people, they're already getting the pen and paper ready to add it to their match of the year list. You know, I'm certainly one of those guys. I think those two will create magic together, and this video package was just superbly done.
Yeah, absolutely. Up next, though, we had our third match of the night, Alexa Bliss versus Sarah Dobson, a.k.a. Crazy Mary Dobson on the Indies. You know, not really too much positive to say about this match. Not a lot negative either. Just not a lot to say about this match. You know, it was, let me put it this way. This match was skippable, but it wasn't bad. It was just, I didn't really feel any reason to care too much about it because there was no really reason to invest in it.
I mean, I have to agree with you, you know, and I don't say this as a complaint. I just say this is kind of like, you can almost call this like an NXT request of sorts. I'm hoping that Blorfexa, whatever story they're trying to tell here, because, I mean, clearly, and we've mentioned this so many times, Alexa Bliss is the leader of Blorfexa. You know, right. She runs it. It's her house. However, Blake and Murphy gave her the assist tonight.
Yeah.
You know, because Sarah Dobson looked like she was going for some move that may have conceivably put Alexa Bliss away. You had, I believe, Wesley Blake distract the referee, and then Buddy Murphy kind of moves her out of the way.
Yep.
Alexa Bliss capitalizes, does the sparkle splash off the top rope, gets the win. But I mean, you know, in Alexa's mind, like, she's going to take all the credit. She did it on her own. She showed her boys how to be a winner, and she's just going to continue to hem and haw and get frustrated with them the next time they lose a tag match. But there's got to be an end game somewhere. I'm not saying wrap up this storyline next week. You don't have to go that fast, but let's see some progress, you know. And I know it's a bit difficult when you have a roster rotation, but I'm just waiting to see when the legs of this story will really start to show themselves and we can really pick up speed. So that's really all I have to say about that.
Yeah, you make some great points, and it kind of makes me wonder if it's going to lead to them splitting up, which I don't necessarily want, but given how stagnant this faction feels right now, maybe that is the next decision or the next sort of thing that you need to do in order to keep them interesting.
I mean, dude, you know I've already come out and said it. With New Day as baby faces, either get Blorfex up on the main roster to feud with them, or the other thing that I had, and I don't really want to admit this, but I guess I wouldn't mind it if they're heel. Maybe heel Dudleys will take the titles off New Day, but I would so prefer Blorfexa. Because, I mean, what a first program to get into. You win the WWE Tag Team titles, you shoot in the arm the division. And, yeah, I think it would totally revitalize them. Because I'm telling you, and I don't say this to be denigrating, because I know how great Blake and Murphy are. And they're still, in my mind, and maybe in your mind too, so underrated by a lot of people. But I think they are, because you don't see them as often, because American Alpha and the Revival are kind of the thing now.
Yep.
You know, they are kind of going into the background. It happens. I feel like the Vaudevillains have kind of gone into the background, you know, because now their big thing is, oh, we're feuding with the Hype Bros. Enzo and Cass even, they got their rematch. You know, what do they do now? I feel like they've exhausted everything. So it's not the idea, oh, Blake and Murphy are so horrible. They're great. And it's really a shame that more people don't recognize them as such. It's just they need that shot in the arm, and they can give a shot in the arm themselves to the WWE main roster tag team division. So call these guys up and bring Alexa with them, because a full package, man, is what those three are. So let's get it done.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move on. Up next, we had another Alex Reyes interview, this time with Samoa Joe, or at least we were supposed to have an Alex Reyes interview with Samoa Joe. But as soon as Reyes says that Finn's really been on a roll, Joe snatches the towel off of his own head and just kind of glares at Reyes and then walks out.
Dude, yeah, and I want to preface this by saying this isn't me trying to, like, commit hyperbole or be Johnny Scumbag when I say this. I'm saying with the utmost sincerity. I'm loving heels in pro wrestling right now. Like, heels are so freaking good. You've got Samoa Joe, Kevin Owens, you've got Naito in New Japan, Lucha Underground, Mother of God. Like, where do I even start there? I mean, Johnny Mundo, obviously. Yep. Matanza. Just, the heel is running the world right now. You know, it's just, I'm so glad that we live in an age because, and you've even said this, you know, it's all about what the babyface has to overcome. Well, this is the best time as far as obstacles are concerned, you know, in pro wrestling. You've got so many quality heels, which I think bring out quality baby faces as a consequence. You know, so I just really want to say, looking at Joe and looking at his work, because I think what he did actually came up next, and I freaking loved it.
That's correct. Yeah, well, let's move right on to that next.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have, was it Martin Stone? What's his other name?
Danny
Burch, that's right.
Yeah.
Danny Burch versus Bull Dempsey. But as Bull Dempsey's making his entrance and doing his little jumping jacks on the ramp, Joe attacks, and Joe attacks hard. He destroys Bull, and then he gets in the ring, and it looks like he's just kind of going to ignore Danny Burch, but then Danny Burch goes on the offensive and gets dominated.
I mean, look, let me just say in Samoa Joe's defense, because of course I would take the defense of the assailant here. You know, Joe
just admitted that he was the assailant. Your argument is moot.
Okay, shut your face hole for 2 seconds, all right? More importantly, I can say personally that Joe is very passionate about Bullfit. He was just testing Bull Dempsey's lung capacity, saying how long he could breathe before passing out. Okay? That's all he was doing. And from what I could tell, Bullfit is bullshit, because he passed out fairly quickly. Danny Burch, not much better, which is kind of a shame because knowing that Bull Dempsey's on the way out, I actually thought Danny Burch would get the win here, and I do like him. I still think that a team between him and Christopher Gerard, who I now know is Biff Busick, which is still incredibly awkward, would make a pretty solid team for me. But yeah, Joe pretty much handed them both their asses, and then he looked into the camera and told Finn more or less, "That's you. I'm coming for you, and I'm taking my NXT championship." But take my sweet velvety voice and then replace it with a man pretty much screaming just maniacal at Finn Balor. He is incensed right now that Finn Balor is NXT champion.
And can you blame him?
No, I can't. It should be his. I mean, look,
after all, he did save Finn's life.
Yeah, he saved Finn's life. Okay, he saved Sammy's life.
That's what I meant. Yeah, Sammy was who I meant. I botched there, but he did basically carry Finn to the Dusty Classic.
Yeah, I mean, he saved Sami Zayn, which shows that he is a huge believer in charity work. He carried Finn through the Dusty Classic. Again, you know, what a soul. And how does he get repaid? No NXT championship. You know, I pride myself on being a douche nozzle, but even I have to see the injustice being perpetrated
Well,
here.
really, how does he get repaid? Oh, here, Joe, jump through this other hoop known as a battle royal if you really want a title shot.
Yeah, and how did he get eliminated from that battle royal? By Tyler Breeze, who was already eliminated. So, yeah, Joe just keeps getting perpetually screwed, so he took matters in his own hands, and then the crowd has the audacity to call Joe the bad guy. You know, why don't you flip your phones open and have your face reflected back in them, because those are the bad guys there. But regardless, Joe sent a message. I can't wait for the rematch at Dallas. I'm still hoping Joe wins, but I have my doubts.
Yeah.
All right, what came after this?
After the Joe attack and then amazing subsequent promo was an amazing subsequent Jordan and Gable sit-down interview and video package that highlighted Jordan's college career and Gable's Olympic experience. And the weird thing is, it actually highlighted their failures more than their successes.
And you know what, Ashton? Let me just say that was what this whole thing got right. Because here's the thing. I don't doubt that Jordan and Gable are over. I don't doubt that even without this, they would have walked into Dallas to presumably a huge pop. So they didn't necessarily need this to facilitate any kind of babyface momentum, but I still think it was needed from a character progression standpoint. Because I think you look at these two guys, and maybe you have a different opinion, but I think you look at these two guys, and until this, you probably thought, okay, they're collegiate athletes in amateur wrestling that are really, really good, but the thing is, they know that they're good, and we should hate them for it, but they're so entertaining at what they do, we can't help but love them. But I feel like when you introduce the failure, you humanize them a bit more. You give them a bit more nuance, a bit more depth. They're not just guys that know that they're good. They're guys that need to believe that they're good because they've tasted failure, and there is a difference.
And also, I feel like there was almost an element of fate here. Like, these guys might have failed, but if they had succeeded, they never would have ended up in the same place at the same time to become a tag team.
I love the side-by-side photos with Jordan getting his hand raised and Gable getting his hand raised, and then subsequently with the failures, again, side-by-side, just showing that these guys really do fit together like two pieces in the same puzzle, just so snugly and perfectly. And now they've ascended so quickly in the division, they're getting this tag title opportunity. And I'm going to be honest, this is like a huge testament to Dallas because the card is stacked. But this is, I think, the most anticipated matchup simply because of how invested I am in American Alpha. And if you're an American Alpha fan like me, you had to lap this up because this was just another well-done NXT-produced video package. I love it. And they both got to talk. And, Jordan even said, I know that I've always had the ability to get here, but it's always been hard, and again, like you said, talking about the failures, Gable the same way. And I love, too, with Jordan in particular, because he was a beast in college. He thought he had the national title all wrapped up, and he lost. And I think it really says something.
And if you saw the images of the guy he lost to, there's no way they were in the same weight class.
Yeah, really. That guy looked like a freaking tank.
Looked like freaking Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. Here's the thing, you get video packages for guys like Finn Balor or people like Becky, and it's not that they don't talk about failure, because they do talk about it, but I feel like this really made it explicit. Like, I've tasted failure, I've been beaten, and it doesn't feel good.
And you know what, though? What makes that great, too, is that it's relatable, because you can't relate to two guys that are perfect.
Exactly. And that's really what I've been trying to say in paragraphs. You just summed it up in one soundbite. You can't relate to people that are perfect. So even though the crowd loves American Alpha, and I will not question that for a moment, it doesn't change the fact that every performer needs character progression, and I feel like Jordan and Gable got theirs tonight. And I just got to really give kudos to NXT for that. And I'm an even bigger American Alpha fan, after this, than I was going into it, and that really says something. So, great stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, these guys are great. This video package is great. I'm really glad that they went out of their way to sort of humanize, like you said, these guys to make them more relatable, because, I've never really been one to complain about characters that are quote-unquote perfect as long as they're still entertaining, and these guys are. But we don't want them to become sort of like that John Cena character where they're so good at what they do that you can't even relate to them anymore.
Exactly. And hell, I mean, honestly, for as much as I love American Alpha, given the video package that we just saw, it may be the better decision, narratively speaking, to have them lose at Dallas, because they've talked about failure. I don't know, man. It's a talk, because obviously...
The idea is that failure brought them together. That doesn't mean they should start failing now.
I mean, I can see your point, and you obviously know subjectively I'm going to be rooting with these guys for everything I've got, just 110% go American Alpha. Yeah. But, they've said that they've tasted failure before. They responded to it by coming together. How would they respond to it if they failed as a team here? Because that was the interesting thing. When they lost the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, I saw the look on Jordan's face, and he just looked so defeated. And now they're here for the NXT Tag Team Championship. Can they do it? I'm
honestly,
into it,
dude,
man.
I legitimately think their first loss should be them losing the tag titles. That, they should not lose until they win the tag titles, and then their first loss should be them losing them.
We'll see, man. We'll see. Because I know with certain babyface, entities, sometimes they like to do that slow burn. Sometimes they like to see that struggle. We'll see with Jordan and Gable, American Alpha, if that struggle's to be had, or if they're just going to win it and just go on a tear. So with that said, let's move on.
Oh, man. This was a really good show, but I don't think anything got me to mark out quite as much as this next segment. Are you ready for this?
Oh, yeah, you got this one, brother, because you marked out it. This is the one I'm thinking of.
No Way Jose.
Yeah, buddy.
Now, on the surface, you're thinking Adam Rose, you're thinking Tyler Breeze, you're thinking Fandango. But what you need to realize is that even though all three of those guys are great at what they do, none of them have quite the amount of charisma as the guy that's going to be playing this No Way Jose character, because I've seen this dude. And for those of you that don't know, No Way Jose is going to be Levis Valenzuela Jr. Back on the indie scene, he was I think it was Manny Garcia on the indies. And it was great too, because he actually played like a snobby rich heel on the indies a lot, and he was really, really good at just getting that heat. But now I've actually seen little clips of him at NXT house shows, and he is so over the top, so larger than life, so charismatic. This dude, I don't care if the gimmick ends up sucking. This dude is almost too good to fail.
So let me ask you, Ashton, first and foremost, so we can have like a baseline for conversation. The clips at the house shows, was he like working heel? Was it a heel response?
No, at the house shows he was working face, and I've seen a clip of him actually teaming with Swann, and they were like this babyface party tag team that had like these really cool like entrances where party music would play and they would dance around, like dance with the crowd and stuff.
You know what? I can sink my teeth into that. I mean, it's funny that Swann was also on this show and he faced Finn Balor when this vignette aired.
Yeah.
And the vignette definitely gave off a babyface vibe. You know, it was fun. It was bright. So I'll tell you what, if this guy comes in.
And the dude has a great look too. I mean, if just based on looking at him, he's probably around the 6'3", 6'4" range height-wise. He's got a great build. He's ripped. He's got a big old afro that makes him really stand out. I freaking love this guy.
Yeah, I'm looking at images of him now, and yeah, I remember this guy now. You know what? Him and Swann could make magic together. And you know what? I'll say this. I mean, you know I've been salivating, Ashton, for Swann to have something to do. The NXT Tag Team division has never been hotter, so Swann would actually be getting in on the hottest ticket in NXT at the moment. And Levis Valenzuela Jr., I hope I pronounced that right, I think would have a great opportunity himself here. He does have an amazing look. I mean, look at that build. Jesus. And if he is just oozing this charisma and he is like really over and getting that reaction, sky's the limit for a guy that looks like he does. So I wish him all the best. I'm very excited for this. And I'll tell you what put the biggest smile on my face, guys. Here in my cohort and commentary here at Mark Out, because we already know he already has one fan guaranteed. So knowing the reaction he's elicited from guys like Ashton and, you know, crowds at house shows, I'm really pumped for this guy. And that's just the beauty of NXT. You know, even when they may sometimes be like, that was a good show or this, that, and the other, what always intrigues me about NXT is the talent they bring in. I'm still waiting for Athena's debut, whenever that's going to happen.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on that. But this guy, No Way Jose, I can sink my teeth into that. So we'll see what he does.
I know that this probably is going to come off as hyperbole, and it might be, but just based on what I've seen, we could be looking at the next Rock right now.
Hey, dude, you know, you never know, right? I'm not going to call you out on it. Obviously, Rock, especially at his best, very charismatic, but, you know, this guy has a great look again. And you always do your legwork.
I just did a Google, by the way, and I found one of the sites for an older wrestling promotion that Levis Valenzuela Jr. wrestled for. They have him listed at 6'3", 230.
Wow, okay.
That's ideal.
Yeah.
That's the size WWE looks for. I mean, by now he's clearly bulked up a little bit, maybe like 240, 45-ish. But
right,
he's got everything you look for in a top babyface. It's crazy to me that like this guy has what it takes to legit go to the top.
And you know, it's funny because when you look at guys, at least for me personally, Ashton,
from the Dominican Republic too.
Yeah, not bad. But what's funny about Valenzuela Jr. here, you know, you see guys, at least for me personally, again, I would never want to speak for you, but when I've done my research, when I've seen guys, like one name that instantly comes to mind, Abraham Washington was a guy that I think a lot of people had a lot of expectations for. Thought he was very charismatic. But I look at this guy, and going on your word, which I find to be very credible because you always do the legwork, you're kind of the researcher of the group. If he's getting that reaction, he has a build, and his stats or something like that, I mean, I think his ceiling is very high. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think WWE would really hit the ground running with him because I think he's what they look for. He's the prototype of, like, that next big kind of star that they mold ultimately. You know, the coal they crush into the diamond. Same way with Baron Corbin. You know, I think Baron Corbin's got an amazing look, and he's going to go far whenever they call him up to the main roster. But this guy... Yeah, you may have struck oil there when you say this guy could be the next Rock. And again, I only bring up Abraham Washington because I heard a lot of the same things about him, but here it might actually be warranted. It may not just be people being like, "Oh, Abraham's so good," you know, whatever. I mean, with this guy, he may earn it in due time. So I'm really actually intrigued for the debut now more than I was before we discussed it, and I owe that to you. So thanks for getting me jazzed up, and we'll see what No Way Jose brings to the table.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There have probably been a lot of guys that have come and gone that had that kind of charisma and the build and the look and stuff. It's not like being a certain height and having a certain amount of charisma guarantees that you're going to be a star in WWE. But I don't think I've ever really stuck my neck out there for anyone before like this.
Oh, you haven't. And see, that's why I take it seriously. Like, I think there's a legitimate gravity there because, I mean, I'll be honest. You know, I've put my neck out for certain guys. I haven't really gotten many returns, if I'm being honest. Even Apollo Crews, who I like, really hasn't panned out like I thought he would, you know, entirely. If I'm being honest, and again, I don't mean that offensively.
Again, though, the one thing I will say, my biggest pet peeve in the WWE when it comes to these vignettes, no date. We have no clue when.
No date. No date. You know why?
Honestly, I hope that it's not one of those like 2 or 3 month builds. I hope he shows up the NXT after Dallas.
I would agree. You know, it's a new set of tapings. You're starting fresh.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of a better atmosphere you create to debut a talent like that. I mean, no, the idea that you're sticking your neck out for this guy like this makes me take it very seriously. And I'll tell you, No Way Jose, I'm on the lookout, man. I can't wait for that debut now. And especially, again, if he's going to team with Swann, could be a very high-energy, fun tag team.
I don't think he's going to team with Swann right off the bat, dude. I mean, they might eventually become a team down the line, but this is clearly him debuting with a solo act.
I agree, but let me just say this. If it does get to the point where him and Swann do end up as a team, I mean, with a guy with his look and everything, I think he could tear it up on singles, so, no need to saddle him with anybody. But if they do become a team, I think it would be a very short time where they would become what the Hype Bros have really tried to be, and that's that high-energy, legitimately fun tag team. Like, they would totally unseat the Hype Bros to me, and that's not just for my... Yeah, just no question about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now let's move on. I like this. They gave us 2 matches that we're going to be getting next week. Alex Riley versus Apollo Crews, and Samoa Joe versus Bull Dempsey.
Oh, Bull. Good luck.
This is the match that got Bull kicked out.
I hope Joe beats the shit out of him. And I'm not even saying that because, I love a good beatdown, which, I mean, obviously is true. But, if you really want to give Joe that heat before Dallas, and if you really want a convincing write-off for Bull off TV, I think you need Joe just to have, manhandle him. Just beat the ever-loving crap out of him. Yeah. So, we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And then we get to our main event, Emma versus Asuka. This is a really, really well-done match. Maybe not quite as good as their London match, but still lots and lots of submission attempts from Asuka here. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, Asuka, as per usual, very aggressive, but Emma returned that aggression, tenfold. I mean, she really battled back. I liked early on when Asuka had the ankle lock, she didn't get the German right away. Emma was actually able to roll through. I thought that was nicely done.
Yep.
The Emma Mite sandwich in the corner looked particularly brutal tonight. I like all the...
And yet Asuka kicked out at 1.
Yeah, dude, yeah. I loved how Emma was really starting to get exasperated, towards the end. Like, she thought she had a 3 count after 1 maneuver. Asuka kicked out at 2 3/4, and Emma's like, come on! And yet she was still able to dock the kick because Asuka was, measuring her. And they had a great back and forth. Those hip attacks by Asuka, I'll be honest, I love Asuka, and I try and be very careful how I criticize her, because I want to live. But the hip attacks, sometimes they hit and miss with me. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that was good. Sometimes I'm like, these were on point tonight. They looked full force, full contact. I particularly like the follow-up one when Emma got the dropkick, and then Asuka goes off the ropes, and she hits it on the rebound.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
That was a nicely done spot. Very nicely executed. And then, she gets the submission win over Emma, so now she's really sealed this rivalry, I think. She's really cemented her dominance. Now, if I was fantasy booking, I'm going to go in that territory for just a second, I personally would have Bayley take on Nia Jax next week, because it seems like Asuka took on her biggest adversary in recent memory. Why not have Bayley do the same to show that she's also ready for Dallas? But I'm assuming that they probably want to protect Nia Jax anyway. They wouldn't want to have her take a second loss so soon. So probably won't happen. But I am hoping that we get something from Bayley next week before Dallas.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so great match, though. I mean, really enjoyed it.
Match, yeah. I can't wait to do our NXT TakeOver Dallas preview and predictions, because I think some of my predictions might surprise you.
I would say the same to you. You know, I really don't know who I'm going to go with certain matches. I still have to marinate on some of the potential results. But yeah, it's going to be an amazing show. And can I just say, as far as NXT is concerned, you know, kudos to them for giving Asuka and Emma the main event on a same show where your NXT champion actually competed.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, good on them. Good on them. With that said, do you want to move on to our next segment?
Let's.
All right, high spots and low shots. Who's going to be? You know what? My low shot, I've got a co-low shot. I'm not even going to use the honorary. My low shot is Danny Burch and Bull Dempsey.
Yeah, there you go.
Because you are nothing but fodder for a superior athlete.
So true.
Suck on that. Who's your low shot?
My low shot's Elias Samson, because, I mean, yeah, like, you beat the guy up afterwards, but you also had to sneak attack him, and the only reason you wanted to beat him up in the first place is because you lost.
Exactly. I mean, great pick there.
GG, Elias.
You know what?
But also, your name is Elias. That makes you my low shot in the first place.
Whoa! Ashton giving that first name heat. All right. My high spot, you know what? I'm in such a good mood. Today has been such an amazing day. I'd really be doing myself a disservice if I didn't make my high spot something that would put a smile on my face. Samoa Joe. Seeing you abuse other people just makes me so happy inside. I aspire to be
Watching Joe
you.
abuse others is your passion.
Honestly, I'm going to be honest with everybody. Had my life been a little bit different, I would have reveled in bullying others. And just seeing Joe do it on a regular basis, I get to live vicariously through him, just like a parent does a beauty pageant child. Joe, you are absolutely wonderful. I hope you never stop denigrating people and making them feel like shit, because quite frankly, Bull Dempsey, you are a failure. You've always been a failure, and dare I say, what you did tonight was probably the best work you've ever done in your entire career. May I advise that you lay down and die. So, Joe, great job being my high spot this week.
You know,
who's your high spot?
I was with you right up until you told him to die.
Well, it's kind of my thing. Lay there and die, you piece of crap, you know. So, it feels good. But, you know, Bull's doing all right. He's working some show somewhere. You know, he'll be good.
He's working some show somewhere. I don't give a shit enough to actually look it up, but I'm sure he's doing something with his life.
What, you expect me to waste typing energy in Google for a Bull Dempsey wrestling event? Are you high?
Say that?
No, it just seemed implied.
Am I ever high?
I think you and I are both flying pretty high after the quality wrestling we've gotten tonight, but regardless, who's your high spot?
My high spot is Jordan and Gable, because they had a really, really well done video package tonight where they went from super over baby faces because of how good they are in the ring to actually relatable.
Can I just say, I want to thank you, actually, for making American Alpha your high spot, because it's nice that I'm not doing it for a change, because I'm sure people probably think, oh, you know, obviously, because he's the mark. So I'm glad you gave them a high spot, and I agree with you. This video package was exceptionally done.
We're both marks, brother.
Yeah, buddy. I think the video package was exceptionally done. I think it did a great service to their characters, and I just agree with your, appraisal of the segment. That was just well done. So, with that said, is there anything else you want to say?
I think we're done, man.
All right, guys. That felt like a quicker review. With that said, this has been NXT. This has been TWitWoW. The best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment and subscribe on YouTube. Ashton, what question you have for our subscribers this week?
Well, I mean, TakeOver at Dallas is next Friday, so I don't want to really ask any questions about that until next Wednesday. So let me just say this. Does Alex Riley, I mean, it's clear, very clear that Bull Dempsey's losing to Joe. Does Alex Riley stand a chance, though, next week against Apollo Crews?
Oh, I haven't answered that question, but I'll leave that to you guys. So you guys answer that. Does Alex Riley have a chance against Apollo Crews?
Look, man, don't discredit the power of rage.
Look, all I know is all I'm going to care about is what Apollo Crews had for breakfast that morning before he beats Riley. Yeah, that's right, Riley. I used your own promo to insult you. Suck a railroad spike, you little bitch. Anyway, be sure to go over...
I'm not even touching that.
Yeah, neither would anyone else. Be sure to take the conversation over to Tweetov. That is Pro Wrestling is taking over Facebook. A lot of people who love NXT there. A lot of people who love to laugh at the misfortune of others, though it's probably just me projecting. And I'm sure you'll find a nice space there to discuss all things pro wrestling. An amazing pro wrestling group with some really quality people. Also, be sure to check out the TWitWoW Facebook page. Like, share, and comment on the content. If Facebook isn't your medium of choice, we are also on Reddit. On the TWitWoW subreddit, you will find all of our TWitWoW content, and members of the TWitWoW subreddit can create threads of their own on all things related to pro wrestling, including NXT. But if you want just the full package, the full TWitWoW experience, I highly recommend you follow both of us on Twitter. I am at John_TwitWoW. Ashton is at apond404. That's the letter A, pond, the body of water, POND. 404, and we will see you again for our Thursday night SmackDown review, where I have to wonder how Kevin Owens is going to respond to the gross injustice of being placed in a ladder match against 6 other individuals at KO Mania.
But also Brock Lesnar.
That's right, but mostly KO Mania. Until then, tune in and peace out.